Hi there, my name is Stephanie of The Simple Classroom. Thank you for visiting my blog. If you have been here before and you've been hanging out with me for a little while, then you know that I'm passionate about literacy instruction. And I particularly talk a lot about centers and how I want to simplify the process of prepping centers for teachers. So you may already be familiar with my video on having your students do projects versus centers, prepping centers once a month, simplifying your classroom management in your centers with visual cues. I have kind of articles and videos about all of those things floating around on this website somewhere, so I will link to them in this blog post so that you can get to them more easily. But in 2020, I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons and talk about another very, very important piece, more important piece of the literacy block, and that's small groups. So once I think that centers are important because you have to focus on them to make your routines and your procedures and your activities strong and like a tightly run ship so that you can get those kids out of the way. Because the whole purpose of the center time is so that you can pull a handful of kids to your table and teach your heart out so that they can fully absorb whatever you were talking about in whole group that they only got like 20% of because they were sitting next to their best friend, or they had to get up and use the restroom, or you're wearing like funky shoes and they couldn't stop staring at them. Whatever it is, they may not have gleaned everything you said in the whole group lesson. So now is your chance to say it again in a way that they'll understand, with a text that's on their level, with a topic that might interest them, by honing in on the skill that they are struggling most with, whether that's vocabulary or fluency or phonics or whatever it is. This is your time to shine. This is your time to make some magic happen. But even the best of teachers find that their small group instruction feels stale on occasion. I am a big creature of habit. I like to have a routine. I like to have, like, on Mondays we preview vocabulary and we hit some phonics stuff. On Tuesdays we pre-read and we make some predictions and get through the first chapter in our basal text. On Wednesdays, we do chapters 2 and 3 and revisit our prediction. On Thursdays, we finish the book and we journal about it. And then on Fridays, we assess. I like to follow a rhythm like that. But even with all the differentiating that I was doing to, change the text up to make them interesting for the kids, switching out the skills that we're practicing, the things that they need, I still would on occasion feel kind of bleh about what I was doing. Like, I wish that I had some sort of grab and go, quick and fun game or activity that I could do around the skill to kind of break up the monotony, because I cannot teach this particular skill the same way one more time because it's not working. The kids aren't absorbing it, or they're bored with it, or the text that I have is like not the most engaging and it's not going to be effective. Whatever the case may be, we all find ourselves in situations where we need a little bit of a shakeup, and literacy is harder to do that with than math. With math, there are 1,000,001 manipulatives out there that you can grab, some double dice, a deck of cards, some counting bears, some game pieces in a number line, and boom, you've got like 100 games that you can differentiate on the fly because numbers work that way. But with reading, you have to be a little bit more purposeful and thoughtful ahead of time because you need the text pulled. Then you have to read the text so that you know what you're teaching, and you have to think about the most effective way to approach it. So, in an attempt to give you something that can break up the monotony, I have begun developing a new series called Small Group Engagement. And these small group games and activities are easy to prep, easy to understand, and applicable to any text. So you can use them more than once in the same year. You can use them one time and then store them away for the next year, but they do not have to be used with one particular text. They could be used with an article. They could be used with a trade book that your basal program provides. They could be used with a picture book, whatever the case may be. But this is how it goes. I would recommend introducing main idea whole group to your students first, clearly. And you could even introduce this particular lesson whole group and model the way that it's going to go by creating an anchor chart. And I have the pieces for it, and the pieces spell out or list out cooking up main idea. And they have what is main idea, and then some numbers that you would glue down the side of your anchor chart and write in the steps of the recipe. You could also include ingredients. This is the small group version where your students at your small group table will have this. But the ingredients for finding the main idea or cooking up the main idea are the title of the text, repeated words or phrases, a summary of each page or paragraph, and text features. If you pull those 4 things out of a text, stir them up, bake them together, the one big idea that you're going to pull from that is your main idea. Every time. It's as simple as that. So when you're teaching this, and you could model it with a trade book, this is an excellent one to model it with, by the way. Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. This is one of my favorites for introducing main idea. Even though it's fiction, I think that it's a really to-the-point, straightforward trade book for teaching main idea. So I recommend that one. But the directions that you would have on a big anchor chart when you're modeling and then the students would have in front of them in small group are to first add the title to your mixing bowl. So I have these little recipe or ingredient cards that you could have your students copy things down on. So I have some that I've already written on and then some that are blank, but this one here, this one's blank. So the kids would, let's pretend you're using this in small groups. The kids would write Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Now, they wouldn't just write it and then toss it in the bowl. You obviously would have a discussion. Let's pause and make a prediction. Maybe have them put their prediction on the back of the card. What do we think this is going to be about? What important text clues do we already have from this title? We have the character, and we have a lot of adjectives that are really bad about his day. So what do we think this book is mostly going to be about? A boy named Alexander and his really, really bad day. And you would toss it into a mixing bowl. So I would bring cooking supplies from home, some plastic mixing bowls, some wooden spoons. You could also use just things you have around your classroom if you have plastic spoons and paper bowls or whatever the case may be. Toss them in, okay, all their titles. Then you're gonna read the passage or the book. As you go, pull out repeated words or phrases that you're noticing a lot, and every page or paragraph, or every few pages for a book like this, you're going to stop and you're going to jot down some thoughts about some key points. So in this particular book, it would be every few pages I would stop and I would jot down something really bad that happened to Alexander. He got gum stuck in his hair. He didn't get a prize in his cereal box. His best friend, Paul, I do use this book to teach. There's some evidence right there. Paul said he wasn't his best friend anymore. All of those things, maybe I would be jotting them down on an ingredient card that says key points. I would toss it in the bowl. The repeated phrase in this book is, I was having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. So toss it in the bowl. And then as you go, you would also pull out text features. So in a nonfiction article, this would be, or text, this would be things like photographs, captions, all those text features that you've taught, bolded words, headings. In a fiction book, it would be illustrations. So what do you see the illustration showing you? Alexander looks very unhappy, or he's yelling, or he's crying in almost every picture. So I would jot down some of those thoughts, toss them in the bowl. Then give each of your kids a spoon. They're going to toss it together, lay it on a cookie sheet. I have a paper one that I don't have in front of me included in the product, but then I also had several cookie sheets in my classroom for magnetic letters. Could bring a couple extras from home. And then, so each kid has one, have them dump out their bowls on the cookie sheet, lay everything out, and there is their dish that's ready to be baked together. You're going to take all of these points that you have pulled together, all these ingredients, and it's time to bake them together into one main idea. So what do all of these things have in common? The title, the repeated phrases, the key points that you pulled out, the text features. What is the thread pulling them all together? Why did the author put all of these things in the same book? Also think about that prediction that you made. Was this book about a boy named Alexander and his really bad day? Yes. So then your kids, once you've had a discussion about the main idea, they're going to serve it up on a plate. The key with main idea is getting the kids to turn it into a complete sentence and not just a topic that's a couple of words. So get them to write it out in that thorough, complete sentence. And then they're writing about their ingredients down here on the bottom. And boom, they just cooked up main idea. So on top of it being just like a cute way to break up the monotony, it also gives them this really formulaic process for finding the main idea. Obviously, if they're working on a reading test, they're not going to have a mixing bowl and a cookie sheet in front of them, but the idea remains the same. They are going to be looking at the title. They're going to be looking for repeated words. They're going to be looking for all of those ingredients. And then once they found them, if they've highlighted them on their test, then they got to bake them in together into one cohesive thought. This takes training. This takes practice. So you could follow this because it's so hands-on. It's really good for those learners, the people who like to touch and feel and move. This is great for them. This is great for people who like to critically think, the kids that are deep thinkers, because they're having to connect the dots and find the thread connecting all these thoughts together. You can practice this over and over and over again until it almost becomes like second nature to them, that they don't even need the recipe anymore, right? And you become a really, really good cook. You could toss the recipe out and just do it from memory. That's the goal, that they don't need the recipe card anymore. So practice it often, and then the kids will become fluent enough that they know what to be highlighted on a reading test. They're not just highlighting every single line. They know what's key and what's not the most important. They notice a repeated phrase when they see it. They notice that the word cheetah came up in this article like 8 times, and it's in the title. So this is mostly about cheetahs. But what about cheetahs? What other information does the text give me? So it takes time to solidify the idea of main idea, but following steps helps. And I thought, well, what other way to relate following steps to real life than with a recipe? So there you have it, a quick, engaging literacy small group lesson that will shake your routine up a tiny bit. It'll be super fun for you and your students, and it'll help your students excel at main idea. They'll become those main idea master chefs. Stay tuned for the next small group engagement lesson that'll be coming out soon. Thanks, guys.